Hi everyone, welcome to The Enthusiastic Buddhist. In this episode, I want to look at the topic of karma. Now, karma is a big topic, so I'm going to cover some different aspects of karma over a couple of episodes to help break it up into easily understandable parts. This episode, I want to look at first defining karma and how we should react when negative karma seems to be ripening into present-day suffering. So first, what is karma? Well, karma has two meanings in Buddhism. Specifically, karma means action, but in more broader terms, it refers to the law of cause and effect. It basically means that if you create a cause through your actions, then a result will eventually follow. Just like if you plant a seed, that seed will grow into a tree as long as the conditions for the seed to grow are there. So karma is considered to be a natural law that happens automatically without needing someone to oversee the process. So it's a bit like gravity in that it doesn't require us to believe in it or not. It will just happen anyway. So in Buddhism, there isn't the belief that there's a divine being who's judging our actions and administering rewards or punishments. Instead, karma is considered to be a universal law that naturally occurs. Now, the reason karma is such an important aspect of Buddhism is because we're creating karma all the time. And if we want happiness and to experience favourable results, then we have to create the causes for those experiences to occur. At the moment, we all create karma with what we call our three doors of our body, our speech, and our mind. So we create karma by our actions with our physical body, by what we say with our speech, and by what we think with our minds. And every moment we're creating either positive and wholesome karma, neutral karma, or negative and unwholesome karma. So to quickly give you some examples of these, positive or wholesome karma are actions that are beneficial for ourselves and others, such as practicing generosity, speaking kindly, and feeling compassion for others, while negative or unwholesome karma would be actions such as injuring others, speaking abusive words, or thinking angry thoughts. The very basic formula of how karma works is that if you create positive karma, it will lead to favourable results and happiness now and in the future. And it's the same for negative karma, that if you create negative karma, it will lead to unfavourable results and unhappiness. These days you're probably familiar with the popular phrase, what goes around comes around. And even Christians have their own saying that, as you sow, so shall you reap. So I guess there is a general belief that we do create our own future and that we are the makers of our own happiness, or not. The Buddha stated quite explicitly in his teachings that we are the creators of our own karma and we are personally responsible for it. He said, "I am the owner of my actions, karma, heir to my actions, born of my actions, related through my actions, and have my actions as my arbitrator. Whatever I do, for good or for evil, to that will I forbear." So the Buddha was saying that whatever action we create, whatever karma we create, we will be the sole inheritor of that action. In other words, when we create karma with our three doors of our body, speech and mind, the result of that action will ripen on us. So even though when we do something and the immediate result is that you affect others either positively or negatively, so they seem to be receiving the result, in actual fact, everything we do, say and think plants seeds of karma to ripen on us at a future time. So even though we might verbally abuse someone and they might feel upset and insulted, we are actually setting ourselves up to experience some future unhappiness from that action. In Buddhism, we talk about causes and actions as being like karmic seeds. So the actions we're producing with our body, speech and mind form these karmic seeds, and the result of these karmic seeds, the result of our actions and causes, are called vipaka, which means ripening, or phala, which means fruits. So when we talk about the result of karma, we often say favourable conditions will ripen as a result of our karma, or that we will experience the fruit of our karma. I kind of like this terminology in Buddhist language because it really makes sense when you think of it in regards to the tree analogy. For instance, we all know that if we plant a lemon seed, then only a lemon tree with lemons will grow from it, right? So the only fruit that can ripen from it are sour lemons. I mean, even if we want to grow sweet mangoes from a lemon tree, no matter how hard we pray, it's never going to happen. So in the same way, if we want to experience sweet and favourable results from our actions, then we need to plant good karma and perform wholesome actions with our body, speech and mind. There's no other formula for it. Now, the ripening of karma doesn't always happen straight away. Karma can operate over lifetimes, so the actions and seeds we create now might lie dormant for many lifetimes before we see the result. You see, how karma works is that as we perform volitional actions, it creates an imprint on our mental continuum where it remains with the potential to ripen into something. But karma only ripens when the conducive conditions for it to manifest are there. So until we meet those right conditions, that karma will lie dormant, and that goes for both positive and negative karma. Now, that doesn't mean we have to wait around for ages until either all our positive karma ripens or all our negative karma ripens. We're not completely powerless here, because what we do now, the actions we do in the present, actually influences how the past karma will manifest. And this is exactly what makes enlightenment possible, because if we practice good karma now and we have kind of this store of good karmic seeds from our past, then it can manifest into our awakening in this present moment. Now, we don't know what past life karma we've created. All we might be able to see is whether we're suffering now or not. And while we have no complaints about positive karma ripening and us enjoying favourable results, there's a lot of resistance when negative karma is ripening and we're experiencing suffering as a result of that. It can be hard to accept that we might have done something negative in the past to create what's happening now. But in Buddhism, we look at things from the perspective of multiple lives. So apparently we've all lived so many times that we've been everyone and we've done everything good and bad. So maybe a million lifetimes ago, when we weren't so great in our moral judgment, we did do some bad things and created the cause for our present day suffering. I mean, if we've been so many people and we've had so many different roles, maybe in past lives we weren't so good at practicing self-restraint, or the conditions made it easy for us to do non-virtuous deeds. I mean, we all know that sometimes we have certain negative thoughts and it only takes a second for us to act on one of those. So I guess what I'm saying is that if we're experiencing suffering right now, although we can't verify how that karma was created, we need to simply acknowledge with compassion that we created those causes out of ignorance because we didn't know any better back then. So we should feel compassion for ourselves and resolve now to live our life with more wisdom so that we only create positive karma which will benefit us now and in the future. It's a really important point here that we should never see our present suffering as some form of punishment for our previous negative deeds, because in Buddhism we acknowledge that we only create negative deeds and negative karma out of ignorance. So whether we act out of anger, jealousy or desire, it all stems back to the basic fact that we're ignorant about our true nature and we don't really know who we are. And until we reach some stage of awakening, we'll most likely continue to act out in a habitual and ignorant manner, which only creates more negative karma. So the point is, we should never give in to feelings of blame or self-hatred. We've all made mistakes in the past by accident. Actually, there can be a real danger in us turning our aversion for the situation back onto ourselves. Sometimes we might think, gosh, I must have done so many bad things in the past to be experiencing these difficulties. I must be such a terrible person. But this is not the correct way to be looking at this. As I said, we've all done good and bad things over many lives, so we cannot judge ourselves or others, or even compare ourselves to others and think that we're so bad in comparison. So instead of feeling miserable or despondent about our situation, we should feel happy and hopeful because we now have a chance to rectify our mistakes and create a better future. The law of karma requires us to take personal responsibility for where we are now, even though it might be difficult to accept at first. But there are no coincidences. Things can only happen if a cause has been created. For instance, a common theme running through my life at the moment is that ants always tend to infest my living spaces and my possessions. When I did my meditation retreat, within a week of moving into my retreat hut, I had ants starting to make a home in my walls, and I could see them bringing in all their eggs, and within a few weeks I had ants crawling everywhere, on my walls, on my bed, even biting me when I was trying to practice. Then going forward, a year or two later, when I moved into my house where I live now, I again had ants start making nests in my kitchen. And just recently, when I went to Japan for 10 days, I even had ants making a home in my car. Now, the teachings on karma say that our actions can determine the type of environment we experience and live in. For instance, if we're miserly, we might be reborn into a barren land where it's hard to find good resources. So at some point in time in my past, I created some cause for me to be experiencing these conditions now. I set in motion for these events to be occurring. It's almost like I looked at the menu and said, oh, a house with ants, a car with ants. Yes, I'll have one of each, please. No, make it 2 houses with ants. Thank you. Now, I don't remember what I did, obviously, to create this result. But it's up to me to work on a way to deal with it skillfully and to ensure that my actions now don't become a cause of future suffering and unfavourable results for myself or others. You know that saying, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade? Well, we need to do something similar when our negative karma ripens. So irrespective of the difficulties we're facing right now, we have to use this opportunity to grow spiritually. We have to accept that this is our current situation, and what matters now is how we react to it. And there are skillful and unskillful ways of reacting. So some of the unskillful ways of reacting might be to complain about our situation to others, hoping that they can provide another explanation other than karma as to why this is happening, because we want a reason that's more palatable, right? Or another unskillful way is to react with anger and hostility towards the situation, which only creates more causes for future unhappiness. So what are some ways we can deal with the situation skillfully? One of the first things we can try to do is just practice patient acceptance of our situation, so we don't reject or deny what is happening to us, and we don't generate aversion to the situation and create more negative karma. Another powerful way to deal with our difficulties is to remind ourselves that we're not alone in our suffering. Right now, there are many people in the world who are experiencing the same or even worse suffering than us. So we should connect with them at a heart level and send our compassion to them as well as to ourselves. So if our suffering is really bad, our compassion should be equally as strong. And it's important to remember that when negative karma ripens, it only lasts as long as the necessary conditions are there. So since everything is constantly changing due to impermanence, our negative situation will not last forever. It has to change because conditions will change and the cause will eventually be exhausted. You see, once that karma has ripened and been exhausted, we won't need to experience the result of that particular karma again. So we should in fact be happy that that karma is coming to an end and our negative karma is being swept away, so to speak. And we should probably rejoice that that karma is ripening now, because since karma increases with time, what is ripening now could have been much worse later on. And if we're suffering because someone is hurting us in some way, then we should try to feel two things. We should feel happy that that negative karma is now being purified, and we should feel compassion to our enemies, because they're only creating negative karma for themselves, which will only result in future unhappiness for them. But I should make it clear that when it comes to situations of physical or sexual abuse, it doesn't mean we just stay in that situation and continue to be abused. We still need to protect ourselves and others from harm. So please don't just remain in an abusive environment. We need to show loving kindness and compassion to ourselves as well. Now the question might arise, how do we deal with suffering we see others experiencing? If this is the result of their karma, then how should we respond? And the answer to this is really simple. We respond with compassion. No matter who it is and what they're experiencing, we comfort them and we give them our compassion. If you think about it this way, if a 4-year-old girl gets badly attacked by a dog, she may be experiencing the results of some previous life karma where she mistreated animals, for instance, but nevertheless, right now, she's just a naive 4-year-old girl who's just terrified and doesn't understand that she's experiencing the consequences of some action that she set in motion, many lifetimes ago. She just knows she's been attacked and needs to be comforted. So we should comfort them without question. Now, even if the victim is older and someone we don't like, we should never rejoice in their suffering or the negative circumstances that they're experiencing. One reason for this is because that only plants more negative karma in our own minds. Perhaps one of the most important things we need to realize about karma is that the suffering in our lives are consequences, not punishments for specific acts we've done in the past. So we should never think that people deserve that suffering that they're experiencing, because, as I explained before, the truth is no matter what suffering we or others are experiencing, ignorance was always the reason for creating that negative karma. And since we're all not enlightened and the majority of our karma is created out of ignorance, we're therefore all objects of compassion. Sometimes people might wonder whether karma as a process is compassionate or not. Well, karma is not a law of retribution. There is no blaming anyone here. What does make it uncompassionate, though, is our reaction to the results that we see. So if we see someone suffering and we say, well, they deserve the suffering because they created it, then of course that's not compassionate. But just because A might lead to B doesn't necessarily mean that karma as a process is uncompassionate in itself, or that it's not valid. And we need to remember as well that there's no permanent self here that's experiencing the result. So our former self that created the karma is not the same as our present self that's experiencing the result now. So there's no one we can point the finger at and say, well, you created that karma, because the you that is here now is not the same you that existed in the past. It's only because we like to label ourselves and others and cement these identities that we then cling to these concepts of my karma and their karma. And when we do that, when we attribute actions and results to a particular person who we see as real and permanent, then we are the ones that are making karma non-compassionate, because we are the ones attributing that past action to them and saying that they created it and that they're now experiencing the results of their karma. So while at a conventional level, yes, someone created the karma, at an ultimate level, no one created it. So basically we need to be able to strip away these labels of self and others so that we can see that what happens to us now are only consequences, not punishments, for specific acts that were created in the past and which were primarily created out of ignorance of not knowing who we really are. Now, although it might be interesting to try and determine for ourselves the reasons why people are experiencing such and such results of their karma, in Buddhism it isn't always so clear-cut that if you do A, then B will follow, because from the point where that single karma was created, from that single action, there are many subsequent actions and causes and also conditions that will affect how that original karma will ripen. Now, sometimes the Buddha did explain it quite explicitly. For instance, when he said killing would lead to our own lifespan being shortened, or that stealing would lead to losing our wealth. But in general, he said that the laws and workings of karma are incomprehensible to ordinary beings, and that we would have this massive headache if we tried to determine it for ourselves. He said, "These four imponderables are not to be speculated about. Whoever speculates about them will go mad and experience vexation." Which four? The Buddha range of the Buddhas, i.e. the range of powers a Buddha develops as a result of becoming a Buddha. The jhana range of one absorbed in jhana, i.e. the range of powers that one may obtain while absorbed in jhana. The results of karma, speculation about the first moment, purpose, etc. of the cosmos, is an imponderable that is not to be speculated about. Whoever speculates about these things would go mad and experience vexation. So please don't spend lots of time thinking about why such and such happened or is happening, because karma is something that we cannot fathom. There can be countless reasons why a particular karma has ripened the way it has. The most important thing we need to understand is that what matters now is how we respond to our current circumstances. So what kind of seeds do we want to plant now? It's not about trying to identify how that karma was created. And I also want to point out that karma isn't the only factor influencing our lives and creating our circumstances. The Buddha identified 5 different types of processes that affect our lives, and karma was only one of them. I'll put some links on my website for those of you who might be interested in reading about the 4 other factors. Now, another aspect of karma is that if we are the result of our former actions, then karma can explain how we came to be the person we are today. I mean, we might wonder why we have certain personality traits and why we're different to others. Basically, every action performed by our body, speech and mind leaves a mental imprint on our mind stream, and when that same imprint is repeated over time, it gains strength and begins to influence our present nature. So if we've practiced anger quite a lot in the past, then we're more likely to have a short temper now. Or if we've lied continuously in the past, it's likely we're able to lie more easily now. In many ways, what we are now is an indication of what we practiced in the past. So we should investigate. We should look at what kind of strong personality traits or mental habits we have right now. Which ones did we have as a child? Have we always had a tendency to be jealous of others or miserly with our money and possessions? And have you ever wondered why other people are so generous or so witty or so kind? I mean, where did this come from? We can't say that our personalities or mental habits are a result of our parents or the environment we grew up in, because you just need to look at the study of twins who grew up with the same parents in the same environment, and you can see that they still have their individual personalities, their strengths and their weaknesses. So karma basically says that whatever our habitual tendencies or predispositions are, it's largely due to having practiced them repeatedly in the past. And once we're able to identify the negative habitual tendencies in particular, we can start to employ their antidotes so we can stop creating those negative karmic habits. The beauty of karma is that it isn't fatalistic. Our future is not predetermined and it can be changed, because every moment we're creating karma. which is actually empowering because it enables us to change our future for the better. So we can change our karma and therefore determine the future conditions we'll meet and the people we'll become. And Buddhist teachings and practices are all about creating positive karma of our body, speech and mind, as this is the primary method for bringing us closer to enlightenment. The Buddha said, "As from a great heap of flowers many garlands can be made, even so should many good deeds be done by one born immortal." So the Buddha is saying that we need to practice many positive and wholesome deeds in our life. So it's as if we were creating multiple strings of beautiful necklaces made up of our beautiful and virtuous deeds. Basically, if we want to become enlightened, it's not a causeless thing. We have to create the causes for it to happen. So if we want to become wise, compassionate, kind and patient people, let alone become enlightened, we have to start planting the seeds for that to happen. And it all begins with our thoughts, because our thoughts are the precursors to our speech and actions. So that's all I want to cover in this episode. As you can see, there is a lot that can be said about karma. And in this video, I've mainly focused on defining it and explaining how we should react when negative karma ripens into some form of suffering for us and others. In the next episode I do on karma, I'll be looking at more about how we create positive karma and how we can avoid creating negative karma in the first place. Now, if you're still a bit stuck on this idea of multiple lives and rebirth, I'll put a link to my video on rebirth at the end of this video and in the info box below. Even if we can't fully believe that rebirth exists, the most important thing is to at least have an open mind to the possibility of it. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed my talk on karma. If you did find this video interesting or helpful, please like and share it, and subscribe to my channel for more videos. And make sure you visit my website enthusiasticbuddhist.com for more on Buddhism and meditation. So take care everyone, and I hope to see you in the next episode.